Home improvement projects look so easy on TV. You bring in a contractor, tell them what you want, and before you know it, everything is done. No muss, no fuss, no hiccups. Well, in the real world, things can and do go wrong. They can drive up the cost and test your patience. Let's talk about that. I'm Herb Weisbaum, a contributing editor at checkbook.org.
Welcome to Consumerpedia at checkbook.org. We're the nonprofit that helps consumers select services, avoid trouble, and save money. Because we don't accept any advertising or take money from any business we recommend, you can rely on checkbook.org to be completely independent and objective. Now, here's the host of Consumerpedia, America's consumer expert, the consumer man, Herb Weisbaum.
Finding the right contractor is the most important step to avoiding trouble. You want a company that can successfully build what you're planning at a favorable price. You can let the architect or house designer select the contractors for you, but here at Checkbook, we believe the smart move is to do the vetting yourself. Checkbook's executive editor, Kevin Brassler, is here to guide you through the process. We're going to talk about how to find a contractor, what should be in the contract, and how to avoid contractor con artists. Hey there, Kevin.
Hey, Herb.
So where do we start the entire process?
Well, start by trying to identify good contractors. You can check reviews at checkbook.org. We cover dozens of home care service categories, from general contractors and remodelers to roofers, plumbers, electricians, drywall contractors. You name it, we've got you covered.
And no matter whether you're using Checkbook or not, you've got to figure out what you want to do on this project.
Yeah, I mean, a good place to start is really thinking about what it is that you want. Do you want more living space? Do you want an extra bedroom and a bathroom? Update old tired rooms? Or add a new layout to a current dysfunctional floor plan without adding space? And think about whether or not, you'll really use that space enough to justify the cost. In some cases, it's just better to move to a different home as opposed to trying to work with a dysfunctional space that you currently live in.
So you know what you want to do, and now you've got to find a good contractor to turn that dream into reality.
Yeah, that's really the key. I mean, you're not going to be able to squeeze good work out of a lousy contractor. And even during the planning stages, it's good to meet with a contractor just to kind of bounce ideas back and forth, even if they don't have a degree in architecture or have a lot of hands-on experience in terms of drawing up plans. Good contractors can really kind of think you through the process and evaluate what you need. Years ago, we were considering doing a remodel, and it was really helpful to meet with good contractors just to kind of find out, they could identify problems in terms of maybe zoning issues, or, adding on this way is going to be easier or more cost effective than doing it a different way. Some contractors were urging us to dig out our basement. Others thought, well, that's just, a waste of money. Nobody really wants more basement space. So by just simply meeting with contractors, the people who might be doing the work, you'll get a lot of good ideas, and good contractors will really help you get the most value for your project and help you think about these things.
Well, we've remodeled just about every room in our home. The house is 35 years old now or something. Brought the contractor in who used the same one for everything, a local contractor here in the Seattle area, and said, here's what we want to do, your thoughts. And he was able to point out things like, well, you don't really need to replace the solid wood floor. If we just have it refinished, that'll save you a whole lot of money. Or if you put the refrigerator over here instead of over there, I don't have to knock this wall out. Do you want to do that? So he was able to come up with ideas, or we sort of had in our mind what we wanted to do, and he sort of was able to make it happen and tell us what would work, what wouldn't work, and saved a whole lot of hassle.
Yeah, I mean, these in-person meetings are just vital. We had a similar experience, except we met with, 8 contractors, and one who came highly recommended kept urging us to do it a certain way that just, for us, it wasn't what we wanted, and he was really difficult to communicate with. So, we realized that this just wasn't going to be a good choice for us. By having these in-person meetings, you can really take the contractor's temperature, and figure out whether or not it's someone you're going to be able to easily work with. And that's really important because, if the project's going to drag on for 4 to 6 months or longer, you need to have someone who you can communicate with, who will listen to you and understands what it is you want out of this. Some are just better than others. So by having these in-person meetings, and really I think starting with talking with contractors about their ideas, you'll learn a lot, not just about your project and what you want to do, but about the contractors themselves. It'll help steer you toward the ones who you can work best with.
And as they go about giving you the bid or talking to you about the project, I mean, if they don't show up on time, they look like they're a mess and they don't really listen to what you're talking about, from the start, you don't even want to deal with this person. I mean, a lot of that face-to-face meeting, as you pointed out, is so very, very important to whether this is even a candidate you should consider for the job.
Yeah, I mean, they should be able to answer very specific questions about, what subcontractors do you use? Can I hire my own subcontractors? Should I be buying my own cabinets and appliances for a kitchen remodel? How will that impact the job? With contractors we met with, some were very open about these things. And the one we liked best talked with us about, if you buy your own appliances, they have to be delivered on time, right? Otherwise, you're holding me up, and that's costing everybody money. I think it was also helpful just to meet with people to gauge, timelines. Some were very vague, right? Well, these projects usually take this long. But a few of the contractors we spoke with said, we work really quickly. This is a 5-week job, which was surprising to us. We thought it was going to be months and months and months. The most value we got out of this were the contractors who were honest with us about, by doing this project, you're going to get this space that you want, but you still have other rooms in the house that you're not happy with. It's chopped up space. It doesn't have this feature or that feature that you really wanted. You're probably better off moving. And in the end, that's what we ended up doing. We moved 2 blocks up the street, but in the process, really got what we wanted and didn't have to live through this, really messy remodeling project.
And you didn't have to change the zip code on all your mailing labels.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we didn't really have to change neighbors. I'm telling you, Herb, you've heard the story. I went kicking and screaming to this new house. I thought it was all just a waste of time and money. But through the pandemic, having all the extra space did actually help. And so,
sure.
It's hard to complain now, yeah.
We always hear the advice, get at least 3 estimates, but at Checkbook, you say sometimes it's better to get 5 estimates.
Yeah, I think especially for large jobs, you're going to want to have as many in-person meetings as you can. Out of the ones you like best, get price quotes from them. In the beginning, it might be a pretty vague estimate because you're still not really sure what you want. A design plan may not have been drawn up, but it'll at least give you a sense of how much your project's going to cost. And more important, it'll give you an idea as to the relative costs between contractors. We, for 45 years now, have been doing undercover price shopping of local businesses, including contractors, and time and again find just huge price differences from business to business for the exact same work. We find that some contractors charge more than double what equally qualified businesses, their competitors, charge. So it doesn't relate to, paying a lower price doesn't mean you're going to get lousy work. We find even among the best contractors, some just charge far higher prices than others for the same work. Either they have bigger overheads or they want to make more money out of it. They need more profit out of the business than others. You really do have to shop around for price, even among equally qualified people.
Do you want a fixed price, or do you want them to take cost of materials and time, et cetera, and do it that way?
For small jobs, you want a fixed price up front. They should be able to give you a firm price quote right away. For large jobs, it may take them a while to develop it, but once you have a design developed and a detailed plan, you want a firm price quote that covers everything with details in terms of the cabinets they're ordering, the flooring they're ordering, the tile, all of it, and you want it set, right? You don't want to be stuck with, you're gonna pay us X amount per hour, and then you're gonna pay for materials plus a certain percent. Those contracts are no good. You want a firm, fixed price. Now, a lot of times they can't plan for every contingency. So a common provision in roofing contracts, for example, is they don't know if the plywood under the shingles is rotten or not, and they'll have to replace it. But even then, though, it should say, well, if we need to replace it, it's going to be this much. For really big remodels, there might be other surprises, and so you need to look for ways in your contract when a surprise occurs to deal with it so that there's some kind of scheme for this is how we're going to deal with surprises in terms of costs.
And you also want to find out what the payment schedule is going to be. In some cases, you'll need to make a down payment. In some cases, you'll need to probably give them money for those big items, special order items. But there should be a firm list of when I'm going to make the payments and at what milestones or whatever, right?
Yeah, and most importantly, that schedule should favor you paying only when work is done to your satisfaction. So for a roofing job, you may only pay 5% or nothing up front. You don't pay anything until the work's done. And that's because it can be done usually in a day. For a big remodeling job, it's okay to pay a small percent up front to retain the contract, retain the workers. But you really want to have it set up to where you pay after they've demoed. You pay after a design, and then after they've demoed, and then after they've ordered the cabinets and they've installed this. And then what you really want to do is withhold as much money as you can until all the work is complete. Because that's your leverage.
Right.
I mean, you saying, well, I'm not going to pay until the work is done right, and this wasn't done right, That's how you make sure things get done, because they're not getting paid until you're happy. And so it's important in the contract not just to include the schedule, but to include a clause that says you, the homeowner, get to decide when the contract's complete, when the project's complete, not the contractor. You have to be satisfied before payments are made and before the final payment is made.
And from someone who has talked to way too many people burned by shoddy or scammy contractors, anybody who wants all the money up front, run away as quickly as you can. No legitimate contractor is going to ask you to pay all the money up front. They want all the money up front. Thank you very much. Nice to know you.
Good contractors have good credit, just like you and I would, right? That, we can order supplies and order roofing materials or whatever it is and pay later. So a contractor who says, well, you have to give me all the money to order all the drywall or all the paint, you probably have the wrong contractor, because it means they don't really have credit, or worse, they're scamming you. And you really want to avoid the ones that go door to door. Oh, I'm doing work in the neighborhoods. We have crews around and we can do your job next. No, you want to be in charge of this process. You want to be the one soliciting the business, not having them come to you, because the people who go to door are often not contractors you want to deal with.
Or not contractors at all. I've seen them actually paint driveways black, or they take the roof off the house and they take all your money and run. So that's not how good contractors work. They don't show up door to door and say, hi, we're in the neighborhood and got all this leftover asphalt. My question would be, well, if you're such a good contractor, why didn't you estimate how much asphalt you'd need properly? Why do you have all this leftover stuff for me?
It's all a red flag, right? And if there's been a storm and so you have roofing damage or a tree down, some legitimate companies do send crews to areas where there have been storms, but you don't want the person coming to your door, oh, give me $500 and I'll be right back with my crew to deal with this problem. No. You're never going to see that money again, probably. And so it's just best to avoid that scenario altogether.
Consumerpedia Fast Facts. The most frequently updated room in the house in 2020 was the kitchen, according to a survey by U.S. House and Home. The median cost, about $12,000. Large kitchen remodels, which included replacing cabinets and appliances, came in around $40,000.
So, Kevin, once you've made your choice, you've landed on your contractor, you have to finalize the contract. What kind of things need to go into that document?
Even if it's a small job, like you're just having some rooms painted, it's best to get it all in writing. Get a description of the job, a final price, and all the terms. Some contractors, especially for a painting job or something like that, doing a handshake deal, I'm sure it's fine, but you may as well just have it written down. As we've discussed, you really want to make sure that the contract states favorable payment terms on your side. If the work can be done in a day, you shouldn't have to be paying too much or anything at all up front. The contract should also have a start and estimated date of completion. If it's a big job, that date of completion will be very much an estimate, but at least get something in writing saying this is how long we think it will take. And get included in the contract a clause that says time is of the essence here, that you're going to do the work and you're going to try to get it done on time, and that work will be continuous. That's an important word to include. You also want to, have any warranties stated. For workmanship, the longer the warranty, the better. For products, those are issued from the manufacturer, but try to nail that down. What's the warranty on the shingles I'm buying?
So if you're doing a roofing job, you're going to get two warranties. You're going to get one on the shingles from the manufacturer, and then you're going to get one from the roofing company, how long we guarantee our work.
Right. And if you're ordering cabinets or appliances, there's going to be a manufacturer's warranty, but you need a separate warranty for, making sure that the stuff was installed properly. For manufacturer's warranties, you're pretty much stuck with whatever's being offered, either by the manufacturer or the store that sold the item. But for the contractor, it's really up to you in terms of what you can work out. Most contractors, for a big job, it might be a year or two in terms of a workmanship warranty. But the longer the warranty you can get in terms of time and the more coverage you can get from the contractor, the better. Especially if you're doing a really big job, like a complete build or a total remodel.
And I know one thing you always advise is somewhere in that contract that should say the job is done when I'm happy with the job, when the customer is happy with the job, not when the guy says, I'm done, bye.
It's really important that the contract says that you get to say when the job is done and you get to decide when that final payment is made. And again, we keep saying this, but it's really important. The bigger that final payment, the bigger you can make it in your contract, the better. That's your leverage as the homeowner to make sure that stuff's done right to your satisfaction.
I want to go just backwards backwards a bit, before you even get to the point where you pick the contractor and you do the contract, how important is it to check out that they're licensed and bonded and registered with the state and have all their paperwork in order?
It's really important. You want to check for, not just that they're licensed, but that they have liability insurance, that they carry workers' compensation insurance. It's often wise to do an internet search to check for lawsuits, to make sure that there aren't any really, big red flags about this business. If a contractor says that, no, I need you to pull the permits and you to coordinate inspections, that's another red flag, because it probably means the contractor or the subcontractors aren't licensed and therefore can't pull the permits. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that they're the ones responsible for getting stuff inspected and for passing the inspections. I think it makes sense also not just to check ratings at checkbook.org, but also for a really big job to ask for references. Ask for references for people who have similar jobs like yours. And when you check those references, ask specific questions. Did the job start on time? Did it end on time? Did they have workers there every day? Were they easy to communicate with? Did the work hold up? Sometimes it's useful to speak to people who have ongoing projects so their memory is fresh. But it's also equally good to talk to people who, it's been 5 or 6 years and stuff's starting to fall apart. And you're not going to know that from somebody who's, just happily got their work done.
When we did our decking job, we spoke to a couple past customers, and I assumed the guy was just going to give us ringers, people who were saying good things. And this one person said, I would never use this guy. They were terrible. And we dropped him off the list. It was very surprising. Maybe he didn't know, but take a few minutes and call these people.
We had this same experience. One of the contractors we spoke, and we weren't that impressed with him. It was one of the guys who just really wasn't listening to us, right? And he was a carpenter and built custom cabinets, and he kept talking about his custom cabinets, and I could care less about his custom cabinets, right? I wanted a big family room, right?
Right.
I didn't want custom cabinets in my big family room, and he was going to put them in there. He just kept going on and on. And then we talked to a few of his references, and they were stellar. But one was like, oh God, it was just, it was just really difficult to deal with them. They had kind of a similar, you got good work out of them, but it was just difficult to communicate with the guy. And so I think it is important to look at reviews. It's important to look for big red flags like lawsuits, but it's also important to just speak to as many previous customers as you can. You will learn a lot during that process, especially if you ask specific questions about their experiences.
Want the ratings for contractors in your area? Checkbook has ratings for all types of contractors in these 7 metro areas: Boston, Chicago, Minneapolis-St. Paul, Seattle and the Puget Sound area, the San Francisco Bay Area, Philadelphia and the Delaware Valley area, and Washington, D.C. To find out more, visit checkbook.org. Our advice is always free. Ratings of local services are available with a subscription. If you live in one of these 7 areas and haven't joined Checkbook yet, check us out. Get a free 30-day subscription by going to checkbook.org/consumerpedia.
Kevin, from experience, no matter how hard you plan, no matter what kind of contractor you have, there are going to be surprises when the work starts. And that's the key, communicating with that contractor, making sure you know about the surprises and have a chance to figure out how you're going to deal with them before they start doing something.
Yeah, this is key. I think it's important up front when you're meeting contractors, ask, who am I going to be communicating with every day? Is it going to be you, the business owner? Is the business owner going to be on the project most days? Is it going to be some customer service rep type person who's not doing the work, who's just responsible for coordinating? And because I think it's really important to communicate daily with someone, especially someone who's doing the work. That way, if you're not happy with something, if things aren't going right, you can communicate it right away. You don't wait until they've built too much stuff, and tearing apart the stuff that's bad will be really costly. Mm-hmm. Deal with surprises right away. Deal with lousy work right away. Don't let it wait. And by communicating daily, you'll be able to do that.
And, some things just can't be solved, and you have to have a middle ground or something like that. You don't get mad. It's like, okay, we didn't know the pipe was there, and now we got to deal with it or whatever.
You and I have been doing this for a long time, and I think in most cases, the homeowner, the customer, is justified in being angry when things don't go right. It's because the company didn't do well. But sometimes, this kind of a feud gets created between the contractor and the homeowner because there was a surprise and the homeowner wasn't flexible or the contractor wasn't flexible in dealing with it. You just need to go into this process, especially for really big remodeling jobs, knowing that you can't expect every contingency, right? And when things come up, in the HGTV shows, there's always some surprise, but then they deal with it right after the commercial break, right? It may not
Right.
be that easy. You usually do have to kind of seek a middle ground. It might cost you more. There might be a way around it, to cut some other part of the job out in order to control costs. But try to find that middle ground with the contractor where you can. But don't be a pushover either. I mean, if it's something that was covered in the contract and the contractor is just trying to charge you more, then that's okay to hold your ground. If they underestimated the cost of the cabinets allowance or something like that, well, that's not your problem. You don't know that there's going to be sometimes that there's asbestos tile underneath 3 layers of flooring. You don't know that, a whole wall has drywall behind it and they need to redo part of that project. Sometimes you just don't know these things, and it's always best to try to work it out in a way that's favorable both to you and the contractor.
So if you're doing a really big job, as you were talking about, in some cases, permits are going to be required, and in some cases, inspections are going to be required as the job progresses, right?
Yeah, and if there are inspections, you want to make sure you're reviewing those reports. You want to know, especially if the contractor has failed an inspection. It's another red flag. You also, during this process, as different parts of your job are done, if subcontractors are used or if materials were ordered on credit, that you get releases of any mechanics liens. These are things that they're really kind of a form of currency among contractors and suppliers of building materials and things like that. You basically want to make sure that the contractor is paying his or her bills and doing so on time, because otherwise you might find later on that you got slapped with mechanics lien that you didn't know about. And therefore now you're on the hook for paying the supplier as opposed to the contractor.
And again, we can't emphasize this enough, so let's emphasize it again. You don't pay until you're satisfied. The final payment doesn't happen until you're happy with everything.
Some listeners might think that we've repeated this too much, but it really is the most important part of any, whether it's repairs in your home or a small remodeling job or, painting a room. They're sure to act a lot faster if you still owe them money to deal with any problems before they get their final payment than if you're paid in full.
Absolutely. And you can say, well, I'm going to complain to such and such agency or authorities. They're so swamped with complaints. It's better to have that leverage over the contractor than try to work with some agency after the fact.
Exactly. And this is what, I've always said to you, and we've written before in our articles, is that no airtight contract is going to protect you from the abuses of a lousy contractor. It's really, really important to pick good people who are doing the work. Because if it's a lousy contractor, your contract in theory will protect you against these things. You can always go to a consumer agency or a contractors board or something like that and maybe get resolution to it. But it's better off in the beginning to find a really good contractor, because that's what ultimately will protect you against lousy work and headaches.
And if you do a major project, there's always mess around the house and that kind of thing. But I got to tell you, we had our entire kitchen remodeled and they were smashing things and breaking walls, and they had plastic up and it didn't get anywhere. The dust and the stuff didn't get anywhere else in the house. They cleaned up every day before they left.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say it was a pleasure, but considering what I was expecting, it was a piece of cake. And that's what happens if you get a good contractor. They really can make something that can be really messy and difficult as easy as humanly possible.
Yeah, it's interesting. In our surveys of consumers, for roofers, for example, we ask about neatness. And that question correlates very strongly with the scores the companies get for overall quality. Like, it does make a big difference that, it's a sign of quality that the contractor each day, usually the contracts provide that at the end of the day, the work areas will be broom clean. But for roofers, a lot of the complaints we get is they left nails and debris all over my yard, or they just left a pile of stuff on the curb. And I can't get anybody to pick it up. So, these types of things, it's wise to get them included in contracts. It's wise to communicate with your contractor about what you can expect. And for really almost any remodeling or repair job, try to get in your contract that disposal will be the contractor's problem of old stuff, not yours.
So the bottom line takeaway here is if you do a lot of work, you do your homework up front, chances are you're going to have a lot fewer hassles on the downside.
Yeah, I hope so. Throughout this, you need to keep in mind that especially remodeling work is very disruptive. And so it's something to consider when, are you going to do this work, or are you just going to move or come up with some other solution?
And there's a lot of talk about how remodeling will add to the value of your home. We knew, for instance, we're not moving. So the value for us was we were going to have a better place to live. We were going to enjoy our kitchen more. The bedroom was going to be nicer, the master bathroom. So there's two ways of looking at it. One way is you're going to improve the house in order to sell it. And the other way is I'm going to improve the house because I'm going to live in it. And that's every bit as valid.
Yeah, and that's a good reason, right? I think it's important to evaluate what you're going to get out of this and whether or not that's worth the cost to you. And you really need to ignore the advice. You're going to spend $150,000, but you're going to get $160,000 of what they call instant equity. Well, yeah, if you sell the house right away, you might get that much money out of it. But
Sure.
if you're going to hold on to the house for 10, 15 years, which we plan on doing, well, by the time 10, 15 years roll around, your kitchen's outdated again. And so, don't assume that, okay, the value of this work, especially kitchens and bathrooms, those tend to, pay off in terms of adding equity to your home. That's what people look for when they tour homes and they're thinking about buying them. But if you're going to hold on to your house for 10, 20 years, by the time the 10, 20 years go, well, that equity might not necessarily be there because now they're quote unquote dated again. There might be, immediate added value if you're flipping the house, but not if you're going to hold on to it long term.
Hiring a contractor is always a challenge, but if you do your homework, you can prevent a lot of hassles and costly surprises. Well, that's this edition of Consumerpedia. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to us on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Remember, we release new episodes every other Thursday. Another way you can support the show is to follow Consumerpedia on Facebook and Instagram, and at My Consumerpedia on Twitter. I'm Herb Weisbaum, checkbook.org.
Consumerpedia is a public service of checkbook.org. We're a unique nonprofit that empowers you, the consumer, to save money and make smarter choices. From auto repair shops to doctors, plumbers to vets, you can count on checkbook.org to help you find the best services and avoid the worst. Local ratings are unbiased and accurate. If you live in or around these 7 cities and haven't joined Checkbook yet, check us out. Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, Seattle, San Francisco, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Washington, D.C. To get your free 30-day subscription, go to checkbook.org/Consumerpedia. Consumerpedia, empowering consumers to save money and make smarter choices.